Should you leave your partner? Let's talk about it. If you're in a situation where you're not sure if you should stay or leave the relationship, this video is for you. I know this is especially difficult for some people who's been emotionally neglected in their childhood, and this is the first time they're experiencing some consistent non-judgment love from their partners, so it can be a little bit confusing. Hopefully this video will give you some clarity. There are 4 important things that I want to talk about. They're certainly not everything, but you can use these 4 things as a guideline to determine whether or not your relationship is worth continuing. Alright, let's get to it. Number 1, there's more pain than pleasure. An obvious one here would be abuse. It could be physical abuse or emotional abuse. Nobody should ever settle for this kind of treatment in their relationship. Now, physical abuse is easier to notice. Anything that causes you pain, fear, or discomfort, you can see it, you can measure it, you can define it. But emotional abuse is much more difficult to notice. It's about how you feel. Are you anxious when you're around them? Are they unpredictable in terms of behavior? Do you feel like you don't know what's going to trigger their anger? Do they make you feel like you're walking on eggshells? Do you feel like it's always your fault? It doesn't matter what you do, you can't seem to please them. If these feelings persist and your self-esteem has taken a hit ever since getting into this relationship, chances are you're being emotionally abused. You see, emotional abuse is tricky because it's very subtle, and the longer you stay in this relationship, the harder it is to get out of it. Most of the time, you don't realize it's happening, and other people around you might not even pick up on it, but slowly it chips away at your self-esteem. Eventually, you'll get to a point where you don't even feel like you deserve to be treated with respect. So if you recognize any of these patterns, it's important to dig a little deeper to see if your relationship is worth continuing. A healthy relationship should enhance your quality of life. There should be more pleasure than pain. Not in the sense that you're seeking validation or needing someone else to cure your loneliness, but it's about genuinely feeling happier in the relationship compared to when you were single. With that said, it's important to understand that no relationship is perfect. We all have ups and downs. There'll be times when you really enjoy spending time with your partner, other times when you're like, how the fuck did we get here? There'll be good days and bad days. Sometimes your partner might be going through a rough patch and they're not themselves at the moment, so you gotta give them a break. There could even be weeks or months when you feel disconnected, but it should be temporary. If these negative behaviors stay consistent and you don't see them improving over time, that is a sign you need to reevaluate your relationship. A good rule of thumb is that there should be more good days than bad days, and that's why it's important for you to take a step back and look at your relationship as a whole. Ask yourself, am I generally happy when I'm with them? Does this relationship improve my self-esteem? Do I feel more connected to them when we're together? If the answer is no, then maybe you're in the wrong place. Now, there's one other thing that I want to touch on, and this is not about you, this is about your partner. Some people will stick with a relationship that's actually making their life worse, simply because they're so needy and/or they don't want to be alone. And I'm sure we all know this type of relationship. You see people in relationships that are clearly not good for them. Like, dude, why are you with this person? You are obviously miserable and you hate being in this relationship. Why do you do it? But that's the thing, some people are so afraid of being alone that they would prioritize being with someone over enjoying life. So if you're with somebody who is so attached to you, even though being with you is clearly not good for them, they're no longer spending time with their friends and family. They're losing out on their passion, their hobbies, just to be with you. In that case, you might have to be the one to end it. Do them a favor, cut them loose, because they might not have the strength to do it themselves. Number 2, the inability to communicate effectively. I think at this point, if you were to ask people what is important in a relationship, most people would say communication. It's almost like a default answer. But how many of those people actually know how to communicate effectively? You see, most people enjoy the benefits of a healthy relationship, but they don't really enjoy all the work it takes to get to that point. Some people are so delusional that they would call it quits just because they have a disagreement. That's not how relationships are supposed to work. No two people think exactly the same way. You're going to have disagreement at some point, and that's completely normal. How you deal with that disagreement is what really matters. Do you know how to resolve these conflicts? Are you able to find solutions so that you can prevent these problems from coming up again? Are you able to communicate in a way that doesn't undermine your partner? All of these things take a lot of hard work, practice, and understanding. It's not easy. One way I see a lot of people resolve their conflicts is by apologizing. That is not enough. If you genuinely care about your partner and you don't want this problem to ever come up again, then an apology is not enough. You want to get to the bottom of it. You want to understand why it happened, how it happened, what impact it had on the relationship, and what are the practical things you can do to prevent it from happening again. Saying sorry is a good start, but it's not going to solve anything. With that said, if every time you have an argument and your partner just accepts your surface level apology and that's the end of the conversation, I hate to break it to you, but they don't really care about you or the relationship. What they do care about, however, is being right, and you apologizing to them confirmed that they were right. and that's all they needed. They don't really care about resolving the conflict. So that's something you gotta look out for. Another thing that you need to pay attention to is if you find yourself in a situation where you're constantly arguing and you're fighting about the same thing over and over again. It seems like you're not trying to resolve the problem rather than keeping score as to who's hurting more. Then you really need to reevaluate your relationship. Maybe your partner is the problem, maybe you are the problem, or maybe both of you are the problem. You both don't know how to communicate. In this situation, you have a few options. You can either seek individual therapy to resolve your personal trauma, or you can go to couple therapy to get the feedback that you really need, or you can educate yourself on how to communicate more effectively. Now, if you're trying your best to do all of these things, but your partner is not making an effort, then it's time to end the relationship. It's not possible to have a healthy relationship if you can't communicate with your partner. The third one is about deal breakers. I think we can all agree that pretty privilege is real. When you're with somebody who's really good looking, you tend to ignore all the deal breakers, especially during the early stages of dating. It's very easy to get lost in the fantasy that you project onto your partner. That honeymoon phase when you see your partner as perfect and they can do no wrong. During this stage, most people would get into relationships and completely ignore all the red flags in their partner just to find out 6 months later that they're incompatible. Or they might recognize the red flags, things that they would consider deal breakers, but they continue the relationship hoping that in the future, their partner will change. For example, you're in a relationship with a guy who you want to be more of a leader, more assertive. You want him to take charge. And he has never really been a leader, even though he tries because you pressure him to. His natural inclination will slip back to being a follower or being passive. Another example, let's say you're a man and you know that you want to have children at some point, but you're dating a woman who doesn't like kids. She's not interested in the idea of having children. However, she's really hot, so you get into a relationship with her hoping that one day she'll change her mind. So here's how this is going to play out. At some point, you're going to ask her to have a baby, and if she says no, you're going to end the relationship because you know that you're not compatible. Or you stay with her, but you will resent her for not giving you a child. That's scenario number 1. Scenario number 2, she says yes to having a baby. Not because she wants to, but because she wants to make you happy. In this scenario, it's just a matter of time before she realizes that this is not what she actually wants. And she'll resent you for making her do it, or she'll resent the child because the child is the constant reminder as to why she is miserable. You see, when it comes to deal breakers, you have to take it seriously. If you're entering into a relationship hoping that your partner will change in the future, then you might be setting yourself up for disappointment. Now, I'm not saying that people never change, but from my perspective, most people do not make significant transformations in their behavior, especially when they're in a relationship that condones the behavior. So if your partner has a deal breaker behavior and you're still clinging on to the hope that one day they will change, then you really need to ask yourself, if they don't change, can I live like this for the rest of my life? If the answer is no, then maybe it's time to end it. In addition to that, if a person is engaging in a behavior that you know is not good for anybody, then you leaving them might be the very crisis they need to make a change. We see this all the time. People get together for a couple of years, one person becomes complacent and lazy, they stop improving themselves, the other person starts complaining but still sees no changes, then they break up, and only after they break up, that lazy person starts to change. It be like that sometimes. In order for your partner to really wake up and do something about it, they need to know that they're going to lose you for real. Not a threat, not an ultimatum, but an actual goodbye. Number 4, you're seriously considering cheating. Now, it goes without saying that this only applies to monogamous relationships. If you're in a polyamorous relationship or an open relationship and you're allowed to sleep with other people, that's fine, do whatever you want to do. I'm talking about sneaking around, sleeping with other people, and keeping it a secret. If you're seriously considering it, and it's not just a brief attraction to someone, it's not just a fantasy, but you really want to be with that person, then have some respect for yourself and have some respect for your partner and your current relationship before jumping on to the next one. It's better to get dumped than to get cheated on. So those are the 4 points. There's more pain than pleasure, the inability to communicate, deal breakers, and if you're considering cheating. Again, this is not everything, but it should give you a pretty good idea to determine whether or not your relationship is worth continuing. Now, the last thing I want to mention is that I understand that it can be difficult to objectively assess your own relationship because you're so invested in it. There are a lot of memories and emotions associated with your partner. You both have been through a lot together, so naturally, you're going to want to rationalize certain things that are not necessarily good for your relationship. So here's a tip for you to help you look at your relationship objectively. Consider looking at it from a third person's perspective. I want you to imagine that instead of you, it's your friend who is in your situation, and you are a third person looking into their relationship. From this perspective, can you see this relationship having a happy ending? Or would you tell your friend to get out of that relationship? Again, put all of your emotions aside and be as objective as possible. If you could do this, you should have much more clarity on your relationship. Then you can decide whether you should leave or stay. I hope you find that helpful. If you like this video, I got another one I want you to watch. It's about how to love without an emotional attachment. I talk about why you should treat people like cats. If that sounds interesting, check out this video here. Until next time, stay curious. Are you able to find Are you able to find solutions so that... Oh my God! Are you able to find solutions so that... English!